Hello, guys. I'm Olivia, and I'm your host today of the podcast Panic and Me. Damon's not joining me today just because I wanted to have a chat about something that's a little bit more specific to me that some people might find a little bit helpful. So I was going to have a chat about dyslexia and mental health, or just more generally, kind of like neurodiversity and mental health and the interactions between them. And by kind of mental health, by neurodiversity, I mean dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia, autism, and kind of those specific learning disabilities, as they might be called, differences. I think kind of giving a little bit of background, I have spoke about it in a previous podcast, but kind of just giving a little bit of background on me. So I've had anxiety for a very long time, since I was about 14. Recently, in the last 6 months, I've also developed depression. And dyslexia is something I've had for the whole of my life. But I've only known that I've been dyslexic since 2019. So I got a diagnosis, a very late diagnosis when I was 19 years old, at the end of my first year at the University of Cambridge. Because kind of in my first year, I realised that I was reading really slowly, writing essays really slowly. It's not that I got slower, it's just like I was comparing myself to the other people in my course who were supposed to be, at my same level, my same ability. And at first I kind of put it down to like, I shouldn't be here, and, shout out to our last kind of imposter syndrome video, and it's worth having a look if that's something that you felt. But actually what it was I had a specific learning disability. And I can always go into a bit more about my dyslexia and how I cope with it if people are interested. But basically I went, long story short, I went to London. I'd done a really long, really tiring assessment, and they said, yes, you have a textbook case of dyslexia. And on that day I cried, because I was like, I remembered all the struggle throughout my life and how that wasn't necessary. So there is a huge interaction between specific learning disabilities like dyslexia and anxiety and depression and things like that. So for me, I would, for example, if I'm asked to go up to the board and write something, I can't spell it, and that would increase my anxiety. Feelings of being stupid and being a failure and all of that can go around a lot of neurodivergent people's head, and they can feel, less than a little bit, and that can exacerbate the symptoms of things like anxiety and depression, because they have this interaction. And like the terrible thing there is dyslexia. The symptoms of the dyslexia get worse when you're stressed. And when you're stressed, then the symptoms of dyslexia make you more stressed, and it goes in this horrible spiral, as so much mental health issues do. So they have this kind of, link. But the thing is, I was born dyslexic, and I will always be dyslexic. Whereas mental health is a little bit, is a little less a part of me, if that makes sense. I see my anxiety and my depression as more like a illness, whereas my dyslexia is more who I am. So when I got diagnosed in 2019, I started doing my research, and I found that there's so many positives to having dyslexia too. It's a case of, it makes me more creative. It makes me able to think out of the box. It makes me more social, and more kind of having a higher emotional intelligence. And these things can be seen in other specific learning disabilities like autism and ADHD. There are benefits to it. It's not necessarily, it doesn't need to be thought of as a disability as much as it needs to be thought of as a difference. And yes, I need support to thrive, but when I have that support, I can be as good as anyone else. And it's important to remember that. And when I started getting, a better relationship with my dyslexia, with who I am, and with my abilities, with the things that I cannot do. And when I started getting a friendlier relationship with those, and it comes back to what Dama and I always say in these podcasts, which is when I started being more kind to myself about these symptoms of dyslexia, my anxiety got a little bit better. Because, when the other day I was before lockdown, when we were able to, I went to a photo shoot. It wasn't Dama, it was a different photographer. And they said, step to the left. Well, I don't know my lefts and rights because of the dyslexia. And I stepped, to my right instead of my left. And he said, no, other right. And I went, my dyslexia playing up. Whereas, before I would have gone, I'm so stupid, I embarrassed myself, rah, rah, rah. And my anxiety would have exacerbated so much. So kind of how do you cope with having a specific learning disability, difference, even neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and a mental health issue? Well, you come to terms, you work on loving yourself, you work on understanding that this difference in your thinking makes you who you are. It makes you special. It makes you able to do things that other people aren't able to do. And that's really, really important. Also, getting reasonable adjustments in place. So by that, I mean getting the support you need in the workplace or in your in the student, in your university, or in your sixth form or your school, getting that support, making life a little bit easier for yourself. Because if you have depression and you have a specific learning difference, then, your days are harder because you have to think harder about certain things, and then you're tired, and that can exacerbate your symptoms of depression. Whereas if you put the reasonable adjustments in place, you'll be less tired and more able to cope and more able to, so ask for what you need and what you deserve. And then that can, help you cope. So basically, it's a very specific podcast, but I'm sure that there are people that can relate. And that's why I wanted to chat about it. So, just again, as always, be kind to yourself. If you have, a learning difference and a mental health issue, it can be tricky, I should know. But you can get through it, and actually it makes you a better person. It makes you who you are. It makes you more, creative, or more. You wouldn't be yourself. You wouldn't be who you were if you didn't have your learning difference. So it's important to recognise, that it makes you who you are, and to love yourself with that. So yeah, I think that really sums up what I wanted to say about the dyslexia today. So thank you guys for listening to me, and we'll be back with another podcast with Dama soon. And yeah, have a lovely day, guys. Bye.